One might think that the story of milk would be rather mundane, but it's anything but. Today, 2016, we go to the store, grab a gallon of milk, drink it down over the next week, and never give a thought to where it comes from and what processes it goes through before reaching our dinner table. We have really become disconnected with the origins of what we consume, and it's not always so. The images I'm sharing with you are from a really cool 1938 book titled simply Milk, Our First Food, and it traces the journey of milk from udder to dining room table, and is very much a hop back through time to almost 80 years ago. This is truly a fun and very nostalgic look back. Now the following is a condensed version, like condensed milk now, but a condensed version of that book. So here we go. Milk is the first food of many young animals. Kittens, puppies, little pigs, bear cubs, and human babies all receive milk from their mothers. Milk helps the weak, newborn animal to grow strong and vigorous. Cow's milk is the perfect food for a newborn calf. It is good for human babies, and it provides calcium to build strong bones. At one time, a mare's milk, was given to sick babies. Mare's milk and cheese made from it were prized by the Greeks of Homer's time. Boys and girls in Persia are given sheep's milk to drink. India makes the water buffalo its milk animal. A water buffalo will be driven through the streets of a small village. Her driver will stop and milk her if a passerby wants a drink of warm milk. The Laplanders of far northern Europe and the peasants of the cold Siberian plains milk their reindeer. In high Tibet, the great hairy yak gives milk for babies and for sturdy boys and girls. In the high mountains of South America, the llama is the animal used for milk. In Asiatic and African desert countries, the camel is not only a beast of burden, but also the milk provider. Milk is an important and necessary food produced all over the world. A number of years ago, the University of Pennsylvania and the British Museum were digging near the ancient city of Ur in Chaldea. They found a frieze, I think that's how you say it, that showed how important milk was even in very ancient times. The shell and limestone had been carved in the forms of men and animals. Two tiny calves looked out from their stalls in a stable, and at their side stood their mother, while temple servants did the milking. The frieze showed several temple servants straining the milk and pouring it into large containers, and it appeared to show the first steps in making cheese or butter. But back then, in ancient times, milk was kept in clay vessels, or bags that were made of animal skin, and without refrigeration, the milk soured very quickly. Thickened or sour milk, or clabber, was a common food. Its taste was pleasing, and it gave a rich supply of food elements people needed to add to their simple meals of fruits and vegetables and cereals. If the clabbered milk was stirred, thick creamy curd separated from the watery yellowish whey. The curd could be strained out, pressed into cheese, and it could be kept for a very long time in this form. It is believed that the first cheese was accidentally made by an Arab horseman. He had to make a long journey across the plains, and he took a skin bag of milk with him. At his journey's end, he found that the milk had soured, of course, and that the curds had been shaken up and separated from the whey. He liked the curds and later took pains to make more. Such clabbered milk and cheese are still among the chief foods of primitive people in very faraway places of the world. In early times, each tribe of people owned its own head or herd of milk-producing animals and moved from place to place as they needed more pasture. In time, wandering people began setting up lasting homes for themselves, and each family had its own cow or cows. And still later, houses began growing close together. There was not spare room for a cow to graze around homes. To buy milk from a neighbor became easier and cheaper than keeping a cow. This is how buying and selling milk became a business. Many farmers did not attempt to sell milk. They let it stand in shallow pans in their spring houses, and when the cream had risen on the milk, it was skimmed off and poured into a butter churn. Souring developed a flavor. The cream was churned or stirred vigorously until the fat separated into curdy lumps. These were lifted from the churn, washed with cold water, and kneaded with a little salt and pressed into molds or crocks. Moving ahead a very long way in time, on the day for butter market, the farmers drove truckloads of the butter to the nearest town for sale directly to housekeepers. At the marketplace, the housekeepers expected to taste the butter before they bought it. Butter might differ widely in taste depending on many factors. Farmers used to take their milk to towns themselves. They might carry it in sacks or jugs on their shoulders, and that is still the way used by natives of the Philippine Islands. A dog or team of dogs can pull a wagon carrying all the milk from a small farm. Teams of large dogs pulling milk carts have been a common sight in Belgium, Holland, and in parts of France. Here in the United States, farmers have used horses or mules to haul their milk wagons or their sleds. And until a few years ago, country roads were very poor. Heavy mud in spring or after winter rains made travel hard for the strongest horses or mule. In some parts of the country, snow and ice made delivery of milk during the winter difficult, if not impossible. In earlier days, farmers had to be near towns because milk could not be kept fresh during long journeys over rough roads. The farmers would drive directly to the houses of his customers. At each door, he would ladle out the milk the housekeeper wanted into her own pail or pitcher. The farmer would try to make the trip during the coldest part of the day, as the milk could not be kept cold as the day warmed. It could not be kept clean either. It often soured very soon after the housekeeper bought it. And because it was difficult to transport, city people bought very little milk. They felt that it might not be clean and could cause serious illness. In fact, milk production did not become a big business until the problem of shipping milk long distances was solved. Railroads helped to make this possible. Obviously, trains could carry milk faster than wagons, and so could bring milk to the cities from farms farther out in the country. The first railroad shipment in the United States was made possible by the opening of the New York and Erie Railroad in 1841. The new railroad ran to Goshen, 50 miles from New York City. A station agent named Selleck asked farmers of that region to ship milk by the railroad, and they laughed at him, thinking the milk would not stand up to the jolting of such a long trip, especially in warm weather. At that time, butter was packed in large stone crocks or small wooden tubs. In the fall, it was taken to New York to sell. A few farmers with good teams drove their wagons over rough dirt roads all the way to the city. Butter was put in barges and towed down the Hudson River to the city market. We are somewhat surprised to learn that a year's work on the dairy farm brought in very little money. For 12 months, the farmer cared for his cows. In the winter, he worked from before daylight until after dark at the milking, cleaning cow barns, and carrying heavy hay and grain and water. His wife would spend long hours every day washing milk pails and scalding cream pans, and at least once a week she spent half of an hour churning and much longer time washing, kneading, and packing butter. And after a year of waiting, the farmer sold his butter for between 12 and 15 cents a pound. In the spring of 1842, a farmer named Gregory finally agreed to try shipping milk by the new railroad. The milk was shipped in the tall blue churns his wife had been using for butter making. There are 240 quarts, and Gregory received 2 cents a quart for it. Selleck had sent word to many New York families that the milk would be on sale. There was not enough milk for those who showed up to buy it. The next shipments were larger, but still could not supply half the demand. In the early morning, women, children, and men waited in lines blocks long for the arrival of the milk at Selleck's depot. The shipments of milk were not always satisfactory. In the summer, milk was still apt to sour. One Goshen farmer found that cooling the milk lengthened the time it would keep, and he fitted a coil of 1-inch pipe into a hogshead or large barrel, and he then packed the barrel with ice. The freshly drawn milk was poured through the coil, and cooled rapidly, which assisted in keeping the milk sweet during shipment. Today, even the smallest dairy has means for cooling milk quickly. The milker takes the milk at once to the milk room or to the separate milk house. He strains and then chills it as quickly as possible. He'll usually send the milk to the railroad or to a nearby plant in 40-gallon cans. The cans are kept in tanks of ice water until shipment to the railroad or country milk plant is completed. In 1881, the Ontario and Western Railroad built refrigerator cars. Each car held 225 40-quart cans, and the first tank car was used in Boston in 1907. At the city terminal nowadays, the milk is piped into smaller tanks or trucks. These trucks make the short haul to the bottling plant quickly and easily. Reloading the milk cans or the milk costs time and money and labor. If the enormous tank car has to stop several times to secure a full load, the delays are not good for the milk. Therefore, the tank cars are often replaced by smaller tank trucks. They go directly from the dairy farm to the bottling plant, and they make good time over modern, hard-surfaced roads. Most tanks on trucks or in cars are made of stainless steel. The metal is covered with cork, which keeps the outer air from warming the milk. In very cold winter, the cork lining will keep the milk from freezing. Frozen milk would be as useless as sour milk. In 1842, the Erie Railroad shipped less than 700,000 quarts of milk to New York City, and the next year, 4 million quarts. By 1870, half a dozen railroads were bringing milk in, and today, 17 railroads carrying in the milk to cities, much of it carried from railroad depots 450 miles away. Today, distributing companies take the responsibility for the quality of milk that they will accept from the farmer. In some places, groups of farmers cooperate in managing country milk plants. They arrange for the collection of milk at the farms and shipment to the city. At the milk plant, the milk is weighed and sampled. It is cooled by running over pipes of brine. Only a very small amount of the milk is bottled in the country. Samples are taken to find the fat content of the milk and also the number of bacteria that it contains. The farmer is paid for milk by weight, with premiums or extra fees for high value of fat and low bacteria count. In early times, cleanliness was sought only to prevent the souring of milk. Dirty milk spoiled more quickly than clean milk did. And about 80 years ago, physicians began to suspect that many epidemics of sickness were in fact due to unclean milk. Today, workers in the milk industry are examined often for sickness that could carry over to other people. A physician must certify that every worker is healthy. Before milking, each cow is washed thoroughly. She passes from the washing sheds into a special milking room or building, and the floors and walls are built of concrete and kept freshly painted. The stalls are usually built of metal bars, and the floors and stalls are washed down by hose before each milking period. Each cow is led into a comfortable stall and fastened so that she will stand quietly. If she is to be milked by hand, her tail may actually be fastened so that she cannot switch it about. Most cows learn quickly what is expected of them and go quietly to their places in the milking room. In certified milk production, the cows are usually milked by machine. The milk may be strained by workers in the milking room. The 40-gallon milk cans are hauled immediately to the milk house. Some mechanical milkers have overhead glass containers into which the milk is drawn through pipes into another room. There it is stored and cooled before bottling. There are several grades of milk. Grade A has a low bacteria count but does not quite meet the criteria for certified milk. Grade B milk may be offered for sale in most cities, but it has a higher count of bacteria than Grade A milk, and the cost of production for Grade B is a little less than for A. In cities, little Grade C milk is offered for sale. It must be cooked before serving, as it has a higher count of bacteria than Grade B. Raw Grade C milk can cause sickness. Some cities require pasteurization of grade A milk. This is a process of heating milk to a temperature which is just high enough to destroy bacteria that grows in milk and which may cause illness to people. This way of destroying bacteria was worked out by French chemist Pasteur. Today we use pasteurization temperatures which will cause diphtheria, typhoid fever, undulant fever, and several other serious diseases to be killed. Before this process, sickness was often spread by unclean milk. Many people were afraid to use milk for their children or themselves. Pasteurization will not make dirty milk safe. The heating will destroy harmful bacteria, but it will not remove dead bacteria or the poisons formed before they were destroyed. The poisons can make babies seriously ill. Health officers agree that epidemics of sickness carried by raw milk are still frequent in the country and in small towns. Often raw milk is not produced under careful or regular inspection and control, and too often the cows are unhealthy, poorly housed, and dirty. Milk utensils are not always absolutely clean. Those handling the milk may be careless. As a result, the milk may carry serious diseases to those who drink it. Such milk may be a danger rather than an aid to public health. In the farm home or in the vacation camp, milk may be pasteurized by heating in a double boiler. A temperature of 155 degrees Fahrenheit is advised by the United States Department of Agriculture. Bottles in which milk is sold are sterile and free from all bacteria when the milk is poured into them. This process of washing bottles in a modern machine may take up to 30 minutes. Instead of chemicals, live steam may be used to make a bottle sterile. The bottles are placed in large drums or in airtight rooms. Live steam is piped into the drums or rooms. The great heat of the steam will kill any bacteria which may have been left after washing. The bottles, now dry and cool, are carried on a belt into another room. This room is just below the pasteurizing room. The milk flows over the cooling coils, then flows down into the bottling machines. The correct measure of milk is delivered to each bottle, and it is capped by the machine. Human hands do not touch the milk or the mouth of the bottles. And to be sure, money over glass bottles, some modern dairies sell milk in wax cardboard cartons, which are used only once. In most cities, delivery is made by a motor truck. The cost of running trucks, which stop and start often, is high. The noise is also not desirable. In some places, horse-drawn wagons are used for short hauls. Since most people want their milk in time for breakfast, deliveries are usually made early in the morning. During much of the year, the milkman leaves the bottling plant long before daylight and works in the cold darkness. That is necessary if we are to be sure of fresh milk for our breakfast table. Now that the delivery is made, it is our responsibility for its care and use. The bottle should be brought in and washed as soon as it is delivered. Wash the outside and the top if there is only one cap. New milk should not be mixed with old. As soon as the bottle is emptied, rinse with cold water to remove the milk film. This thin layer would harden in hot water. We depend upon the milk for calcium that we need to form sound bones and teeth, and to keep our bodies and teeth in great condition. Milk is also one of the best foods we have for protein, which is a chemical substance we need to make muscles, blood, and nerves, and to keep them in the best condition. Milk contains all the vitamins which we know today, though not all are present in the best amounts for human beings. Whole milk does contain a great deal of vitamin A, which is necessary for children and young animals if they are to grow. Vitamin G is another of the vitamins which helps us grow well. All around, milk is a wonderful gift from God. And that's in quote from the book. Who would ever have thought milk would have such an interesting and long history? In the early 1960s, when I was growing up in Bridgeport, Michigan, Gilmore Dairy brought us our milk, and I also remember him delivering cottage cheese to our house. Mr. Gilmore provided his customers with a metal insulated box in which he left the morning's order. It ensured it would stay cold in the summer and be kept from freezing in the winter. And Mr. Gilmore was also our township supervisor, which has nothing to do with anything in regards to this. But I remember on a couple of occasions that he gave me these really cool metal toy milk trucks. I think delivery to the door stopped, at least in my neighborhood, somewhere around 1963 or 1964. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this nostalgic look back at the history of milk. God bless, and have a great evening.